Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight for another edition of the Haitian Times Community Conversations. This evening, we are so pleased to welcome several candidates from the Council District 46 race that is taking place. As you may know, New York City elections are underway, and we have primaries on June 22nd that have been scheduled. And so we have been holding these forums in hopes of educating not only our readership, but those in the surrounding areas who would like to participate, who need to participate and take part in just civic engagement. So tonight we'll have a look at what the candidates for Council District 46 have to say. Some of you who are in Brooklyn or familiar with the New York area may know District 46 neighborhoods as Canarsie, right? Bergen Beach, Flatlands, Georgetown, Garrison Beach, Marine Park, Mill Basin, Mill Island even, and Shipshead Bay. So it is a huge swath of land in Southeast Brooklyn. And for many, Canarsie, that area is actually a second stop, right? Traditionally, we've had people come in and stay in central Brooklyn. After a while, a generation or so, they then move out to the southeast parts of Brooklyn. And so in some ways, some people think of it as, a suburb of that central, more congested area of Brooklyn. And so we welcome, we're interested to hear what some of the candidates have to say today on the issues that we know are most pertinent to our community, specifically economic relief and aid coming out of this pandemic. We'd like to know what their ideas and plans are for helping people come out of this, not only surviving, but in a position to thrive. We'd like to hear what they'd like to do to support affordable housing, right? Home ownership, rental, just what's available in their minds that can be done for the district. Safety and security, of course, is extremely important because everyone wants to feel safe, to be able to live, work, play, and go to school wherever. Um, and for us as an immigrant group, right, we always like to know where our candidates and representatives stand on issues of immigration support and policy support. And as we're watching what's happening with Haiti right now, and we see things like Free Haiti trending, it seems like more and more there's an urgency to try to address things happening in Haiti from activities that can take place here. So I'd love to hear the candidates' thoughts on what they think can be done. Last but not least, there are some issues that are pertinent to this area of Brooklyn. Specifically, I'm thinking of climate resilience and climate change. As far as we know, a lot of people are still dealing with the impact of Hurricane Sandy from back in 2012, right? So would love to hear your thoughts on the environment, right? And just how you can help make sure those who live, work, and play in Canarsie are able to do so in the coming years. With that said, I'd like to remind everyone, again, the primary election is June 22nd. Please make sure you are registered to vote and are able to by the end of May. I believe the registration date is the 17th or 18th. We'll check that for you. So with that said, let's welcome our three candidates for tonight, Ms. Mercedes Narcisse, Ms. Dimple Willibus, and Ms. Shirley Paul. Do some brief intros. Yep. So Ms.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah, so Ms. Nurse is she is a registered nurse, small property owner, and successful entrepreneur for over 30 years. So early on, she understood in her career that there are many barriers to services, including access to education. And so that's what's really driven her to try to address and overcome some of the barriers that she's encountered, right? And try to overcome them throughout her career. So we'd love to hear more about how she's done that and how she hopes to bring that experience to District 46. Okay. Ms. Dimple Willambus is a small business owner and a self-described driven advocate for empowerment for the most vulnerable members of our society. And the way that she thinks we can do that is through improving accessibility to quality educational resources and opportunities. Ms. Dimple has over 25 years of experience in media and marketing, and she also has a journalistic and entrepreneurial background that she has used to parlay into business development and brand management over the years. So we'll definitely like to hear more from her about how she can do that for District 46. Last but not least, Ms. Shirley Paul is an attorney, born and raised in Brooklyn to immigrant parents who instilled in her the value of serving her community. And she's had some prime roles, it seems, over her career here, including a clerkship with the New York Supreme Court, where she learned the impact of the law on everyday people's lives. She has partnered with nonprofits and government offices. And sorry. All right. I thought I heard an interruption. Okay. Yes. And so she has a broad range of experience with different governor's offices and being able to help with the governor's office, where she helped minority and women-owned businesses grow and thrive. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We do appreciate it. I'd like to go around the room and just hear from each of you why you think you're the best candidate to represent District 46 and why the voters should rank you first on June 22nd. We'll start with Ms. Narcisse.
Oh, hi. Once again, my name is Mercedes Narcisse. I'm running for the City Council in District 46. I'm running to represent every single individual in the district. District 46 is my home. This is all I know. It is the village that make me who I am today. A frontline worker, a Cuny graduate, where I earned my first degree as a registered nurse. Community advocate, everything that I am today. District 46 had been neglected for decades. And that's what I'm here. I'm here because we have a chance for us to come together to address the quality of life in the District 46. My father came here to look for opportunity for us. Everything, like I said, everything that I am today is District 46. This is our chance to bring it back, to address the quality of life issues that we all complain about from the beginning of the district, from the west side to the east side. We have our chance. And as a nurse for over 30 years, I have worked the field. And one of my focus is about public health, specifically housing issue we talk about, education, health care for all, including mental health care for all. I have addressed those issues by being part of Canarsie by Choice, being the president, where we formulate this platform to address different issues that matter to us as a community. As a president of 41st Assembly District Democratic Club, engage with civic engagement, register people to vote, understand the district. I understand District 46. Avenue L, President, Merchant Association, partner with Brooklyn Chambers of Commerce, addressing different issues as the business owner. So District 46 make me who I am, and I owe it to District 46 to come back and work and do everything in my power to make District 46 a place to live, work, and enjoy. That's what. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Ms. Willibis, you're up next. Tell us why you're the best candidate for the district.
First of all, thank you to the Haitian Times for creating this platform for us women to have a voice, and for us, the Haitian community, to actually hear, the faces who will be representing. And one of us here will be representing the community. At least that's a hope. I mean, there are more candidates, but thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm running for many reasons. I'm a mother, a wife, a community leader, a mentor, a business owner in the community. I'm running because it's time that the community has a representative that reflects our values, our morals, and will actually serve us. Usually we hear elected officials speaking, but they never actually confront us and ask us what are our concerns and what are our needs. They speak you know, for us without even asking us. So it's time that we have a leader who will ask us first, what are our problems and what are our concerns, and then speak thereafter. We need someone who not only claim to live and work here, but has experienced the challenges that we've been faced with and have actively been involved in bringing real measurable change to our daily lives. Finally, we need a leader who will actually have the allegiance to our community and will put our interests, whether it be, the education for our children, the safety of our community, whether it be housing or food insecurity, and a quality health care as their number one priority. We can no longer really afford political affiliations to dictate the services and resources that we receive. We can no longer actually wait for someone else to do it for us. We actually have to step up as regular citizens to do this. I'm running because I know the potential our community has, and I know that the hard work and dedication and the commitment that we actually exercise every day as business owners, as parents, as husbands, as just residents, and in an effort to actually achieve success for our families and our children and each other. I'm running because the community has shown me the tremendous support because they know that I'm a servant leader first. And as the Bible says, I'll quote, I'll say this: whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. To be able to serve my community, my neighbors, in one of the highest honors I could achieve. So, I just want to say that it's a privilege and honor, of course, to be running because there's so many things that are happening in our community, as Mercedes says, which I agree, that we've seen this, we've lived here, we cannot continue to stay silent. And it's been decades that we've been silenced, and it's time that we step up as a majority and actually have a voice. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dimple. That was excellent. Shirley, over to you. Why are you the best candidate to represent this district?
Thank you. Sakpase to my Haitian Times family. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Haitian Times and all the organizers that made tonight happen. My name is Shirley Paul. I'm a Democratic candidate for New York City Council here in District 46. I'm born and raised in the great borough of Brooklyn. I am a proud daughter of immigrants. I am a proud product of New York City public schools, graduate of a historically Black college, and I'm a practicing attorney. I'm running because the disparities we've seen for too long now in this moment, in this time, are too big to sweep under the rug. And I have the experience to get us where we need to go. I have 16 years in public service, having worked as an attorney in the courts, in Brooklyn Supreme Court, uh, handling matters, resolving problems for Brooklyn residents, problems dealing with foreclosure and housing and anything that comes before the civil Supreme Court. I've had the pleasure of working for both Governor Cuomo and Lieutenant Governor Hochul, where I've expanded access for minority and business enterprises. I fought to make sure that our minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour, fought to save hospitals here in Brooklyn, and also fought to institute paid family leave. At SUNY, the State University of New York, I had the opportunity to represent 64 colleges and universities that a lot of our students from this district go to, and also 3 state hospitals. There, I served as the Assistant Director of Legislative Affairs. I lobbied our New York State legislature to close the TAP gap, to help reduce tuition costs, to help families balance, to give young people a chance to be able to go to school and come out debt free, to do like I did and take public service jobs where sometimes we make a little bit less, but we know the commitment and the work that we're doing is invaluable to any dollar amount. I've worked to fund hospitals such as downstate right here in Brooklyn. As a 20-year resident, I'm asking the community to stand with me and support me. I would love the honor to represent you in City Hall so we can fight for safer streets, cleaner streets, so we can fight together for better schools, for access to resources, to build our infrastructure, to do the things that we need to help families succeed. I am the first, I am the daughter of Haitian immigrants. And right now I have an opportunity to change that tide, like so many other families in this community have sacrificed. But I can't do this alone. So I need the help of the community. And I ask that you stand with me on June 22nd so I could use those experiences to get in City Hall and hit the ground running on day one to make sure we're not left out in this new mayoral administration that's coming in, to make sure that much needed resources are not left out as they figure out what to do with a budget that's already going to be tight because of this pandemic. So I hope that everyone would stand with me. I welcome the opportunity to share more about my candidacy and who I am and why this community should stand with me so we can work together towards a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you so much. I think from all three of you, I've heard that District 46 has been neglected for far too long. I think, Mercedes, you said, right? So I'd like to dig a little bit more into that, right? Like, what is it, those quality of life issues that you think are most important, right? Most critical to address by your representatives that are not being addressed now?
Foreclosure is at the top of the list. We have the largest small ownership for housing in Canarsie area, largest and with the highest in foreclosure in around the city, and rent continue to rise. Now we need to do more prevention around the houses. You have to be in Canarsie to understand it. To District 46 in large, Canarsie have the high side of it, and we've been hit the most. When you're looking at the gun violence around our streets now, we're looking at about since when I'm on the like different side of the district, whether it's the east or the west side of the district, we're in the southeast, but the west or the east side of the district, the complaint about drag racing, those, we need to do something about it. Too many accidents on our streets. I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna put in each street, but according to the people that live in the district or on the street, particular street, I'm gonna take it block by blocks, street by street, to see what the community need. Some ask you for bumps, some ask you for the light, some ask you for the staff. So I will go according to the needs of each block. One of the highest things as a nurse for over 30 years that I realized during the height of the pandemic, we're talking about pre-existing diseases. Those are all the things that I've been addressed on my little small budget. Healthcare, addressing health fair at the summertime, the springtime, addressing colon cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness. Those are the things I've been doing under my little small budget. Now, can you imagine if I have this city budget, that what I would do with it? I have seen it. We're talking about hypertension, diabetes, heart disease. Those are all the things we can address in preventive care. We have not done that as a community.
Yeah, so you want to share with us what some of the plans are for actually addressing these issues or bringing more attention to them?
We need to
bring specifics.
We want to bring more attention to them because the telemedicine, by the way, during the height of the pandemic, we lost so many lives because of that, because no one had, actually how to get access. We don't have no broadband. People don't have no internet. And they did not, most folks were not attached to a doctor, to a primary doctor to tell them what to do. They end up in the ER, overcrowded ER. We lost lives. And simple things we could have done as a community, focusing on preventive care. Those are the things I want to talk about. When we talk about education, we want to call in the school building, our children, those that cannot be a doctor or engineer, we can put vocational back in the system, and where we can educate not only about education for school-wise, but about your health, about your environment, about the farming. We're talking about food insecurity. Those are the things that we can address as a community. Farmers market, how we eat, how we behave, all those educational things that we can do in our community, that we never have people that represent the district. They make the assumption of what we need, but we never part of the conversation. It is time for us as a community to take the responsibility to do what we're supposed to do. We cannot let a club dictate who's going to be the next city council member. If we keep on doing that, we're not going to get anywhere. We need to address issues that matter to us. And that's what I did when I bought Canarsie by choice. When I came, my father came in 1982, and I remember that. It was difficult, but we stay there. We educate ourselves. We go around, Nasha houses. Look at this. This is so disrespectful. When I go to national houses, whether it's in the east or the west side of the area, the way that people are living, the garbage around it, who are we educating? Who we are kidding?
Okay.
The
So your
cabinet is full.
overall plan, sorry, because we have to
Those
get
are the
to
things
the
that
end,
we
right?
need to do.
Yeah, no, it's clear that you're very passionate about this, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the
Bring in
crux of your
program.
plan is to bring awareness and educate the community about resources available to them and to engage them in those conversations about what they need, right?
Yes,
Okay.
to be part
All
of
right.
it. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Dimple, tell us more about your plan for helping people come out of this pandemic, right? I mean, Mercedes brought up some great points about how difficult it was, right? During the pandemic with telemedicine, and it just like all these issues compounded, right? You don't have broadband, you can't get telemedicine, you end up in the ER because you don't have a primary care physician. What are some of your thoughts on how to help the community not end up there again? Should that ever be, God forbid, something that we have to go through?
So first I'll say that during the pandemic, which is almost, what is it, a little more than a year ago, our elected official neglected us. They were nowhere to be found. They're still nowhere to be found unless they were in a supermarket shopping. But when they were supposed to be on the streets serving the community, I was out there. I remember being in, my dad passed away from COVID on the 9th of April last year. And to be able to combat that mentally, I was able to serve the community. We had many seniors who were at home, homebound seniors who we were able to deliver food to, masks, sanitizers, whatever they needed. And most people call me the woman with the truck because when I pull up at Bayview Houses or Sheepshead Bay, it's 1,200 boxes of fresh vegetables and, food, milk, whatever it is, dairy products, whatever it is for families. And it is so important. This during the pandemic, it showed us the disparities in our Black and Brown communities, especially places like Sheepshead Bay and Canarsie. And for the Haitian community and for the Russian community and the Asian community, it shows you also the language barrier, how it's kept us back. So for me, as a candidate running for office, one of the things I'll say that I've served in Canarsie, a big Haitian population lives in Canarsie, and one of the major challenges they had was the language barrier. And somebody who serves in District 46 as a city council person, if they do not understand some of these things and some of these concerns and disparities, then why would they change that? So for me, coming in as a candidate, being on the ground, being able to serve and being a leader, up to today, still our elected officials are nowhere to be found. So the only way we can combat this is if we understand what are some of the concerns and being able to bridge a gap so we can be able to provide the proper education, so and resources for families throughout the district, not just one aspect of the district or part of the district, but throughout the district at large, whether it be from Canarsie all the way to Sheepshead Bay to Marine Park, wherever the service needs to be. But when it comes to public safety, education, equity, economic opportunities, food and housing insecurity, these are major things that we can touch on and I can get really much in detail on. But being able to combat a pandemic, we have to look at this from the systemic aspect of it and how the leaders in our community handle it. Not only our city council person, but in terms of our mayor, how did he handle it also? He was not ready for this. He's not actually, he was not in a position to make the proper decisions to help us. So, trickle down to our city council as well. They were not ready. And if us as community leaders were able to step out into the street and provide these resources, then we're ready for leadership more than they are. That's just my little piece on that.
Yeah, but tell us a little bit more about how you would address that language barrier, right? Especially when it's not just one language, but multiple languages, multiple ethnic groups who would need different services, right? How do you get over that hump?
So when I served as the president for the Community Education Council, there was a pilot program in a school out in towards Garrison Beach. And based on the population, what they did, they taught Mandarin as an after school initiative to see how many children would come to it and who would attend the program. And there was a substantial amount of students as well as parents who attended that program. Likewise, in an area like where I live in Mill Basin, there's a really big Russian population. A pilot program like this, if it's being administered maybe as an after school initiative, it is something that can definitely be addressed. And if it's something that is attended well, then it could be piloted at a different area, like let's say Canarsie, when it comes to Haitian Creole or French. So these are programs that don't necessarily have to be integrated into the curriculum right away, but as a pilot, and if it's working well, then it could be introduced into the curriculum. Discretionary funding could be one of the sources of funding something like this. I mean, Al Mazel has actually funded music program before from his discretionary funds. So something like that can be an initiative.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it's a longer term plan to get people to embed different languages into the school system and be able to communicate with the different ethnic groups in their language, not an
No.
attempt to make them, yeah, I'm not clear on how that pilot program.
So it doesn't have to be a long-term program, something long-term. For example, each school has the amount of students, what language they speak, what is the language you speak at home, as well as the language obviously in school. So if we know there's a dense population of like, let's say 60% population of children who are Haitian, who speak Haitian Creole at home, and this is a large population, you do a survey of the parents who would actually be interested in learning to speak English, and then you administer this program in the afternoon, like I said, as an after school initiative, teaching children who speak Haitian Creole English, so they would be able to understand the language better, being able to teach English, and children who Russian, being able to teach them English better, fluent. This is just
So
be
teaching the children to speak English, not their parents and adults in their
and the
lives.
parents too. Like I said, the pilot program out in Garrison Beach was a program that both parents and children attended, and this is something that really helped them transition into being able to speak English better. Because what I will tell you is that here in Mill Basin, I've seen this, being in a classroom whereby children are being put into the special needs class because they do not understand the language English, and they're being put to the side. But if they were to have programs to help them with English, to be able to properly understand the comprehension of English, then they'll be able to acclimate better into the classroom.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds ESL programs are pretty ubiquitous, right? Like, I guess maybe is what you're saying, that you need more of those types of programs, ESL programs or dual language programs in schools in the district? Because I know there are schools in Canarsie now, is it IS 78 or 278 off of Avenue L, that has like a dual language program, or they have Creole speaking teachers that can help newcomers, who are only Creole speaking, to understand and get acclimated to the curriculum. I just want to make sure that what you're proposing is something new or different, or if it's the same that we've seen in other districts that you're saying should be adopted to District 46. I just want to be clear on exactly what you're proposing, because
So let me be clear. So what
yeah.
I'm saying is, like I said, when I was the president for the Community Education Council back in 2017, 2018, this was
Mhm.
something that I was a big advocate for, having children who speak different language have the opportunity to learn English. Coming from a country, let's say Haiti or India or China or Russia, it's very hard to understand another language. Like English is very different and very complicated. So if parents and or children are able to do this as an after school initiative on their own time, I think it's easier as a transition. So when a child goes into the classroom, they'll be able to transition soft and easy, especially at home, because in most cases, some of the children actually translate for the parents, because the parents cannot help them with homework and certain other, stuff. Like I said, homework is a big thing, and parents are not able to help. But if the parents and child are educated and understand English better, then I think it would work, better for school and home and both. But it's not something that is new, but it's just something that is not in our district and is not paid attention to enough.
Okay, so I think I understand that you're saying you would advocate for and try to bring in more dual language or ESL programs into District 46 schools for both children and their parents as sort of like an after school activity. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that. Sorry, I needed to just that clarity. Shirley, let's go over to you. You also mentioned the disparities that everyone has seen that COVID really brought to light, right? Things we've been talking about for decades for Black and Brown communities. So tell us what some of your priorities would be in terms of addressing those disparities and inequities.
Thank you. Those disparities, as I said, have been present for a long time. Not only have I witnessed them, but working in government, I really see them working as an attorney. I see them and how resources are distributed or unequally oftentimes. So with respect, there's a few things. So actually, since COVID, while I've always been involved in the community, I'm a coalition builder. I partnered with clergy, local restaurants, leaders, organizations to feed our community, provide PPE supplies, and just whatever resources they really need, help small businesses complete SBA loans and things like that. But what I did notice is, our community is more of a middle class, growing middle class community. And most of the folks that I helped out are not people that are down out poor. A lot of them, some of them, their jobs, their hours were reduced. Maybe they lost resources because they lost a loved one. So, and then we also know, because of health situations, some of them cannot work as much and things like that. So, what I saw was a need for a few things. When we talk about preventive care and things like that, I definitely agree that we should have more awareness, but we actually have to tackle that issue. How? In this district, there's no hospitals. So anybody who needs to see a specialist, a cardiologist, or anybody else, they have to travel out of the district, sometimes even out of the borough. My mom had a brain aneurysm a few years ago, and we used to have to visit her about an hour and a half away uptown. So I think we need to bring more mobile clinics that focus on those specialties, that treat diabetes and hypertension at an earlier stage. So someone doesn't wait to the point where they have to have a foot amputated or anything like that. So if we can deal with those things, but it's a combination, that means we also have to deal with food insecurity. We also have to deal with adequate housing. But more importantly, in the New York City Council, they have a program called New York City Cares, which is to provide free medical care for everyone. What I want to do in getting there, because my community is filled with immigrants. Not everyone here is a citizen, and not everyone in this city that works so hard to make it what it is a citizen. So New York Cares should be expanded to every New York City resident, regardless of your immigration status. So that's a way, if folks have the ability to get to the doctor, that makes it better. Now we also can help them by bringing those mobile clinics. When we talk, so that's one way of addressing it. Food insecurity is very important. We have two NYCHA residential buildings in the district, and whether it's in our district or anywhere around the city, whenever you're near a NYCHA, the supermarkets are the worst. There's really no good food options. So we have to do something about that. I heard someone talk about farmers markets, perhaps working in combination with them. The New York City Council has access to a lot of money through the Met Council that is a big supporter of making sure that everyone eats and eats healthy, maybe doing more partnerships with them. As a council member in most districts have up to $1 million, about half in discretionary funds and half in capital funding. So we can put some of that money towards things that can make us have a healthier community. I spent a lot of time when I worked in the courthouse working on housing, foreclosures in particular. And that's an issue near and dear to my heart. Why do I care about that? In this community, earlier, I think when you started, you talked about this District 46 compared to other places in Brooklyn. And District 46 is kind of the place where, like, a family like mine saved up for many years and then was able to come here and move and buy a home in a community that had people that look like us, reflected our values. And, it's a little different. They do call it the suburbs. That's what I appreciate about it. Crown Heights and all those places are great. I was born there. But when you come here, there's like a little bit of a tranquility. It's different. It's almost like you're not in Brooklyn. So I care about the foreclosures because in the zip code 11236 has the most foreclosures than any other zip code in this city. And everybody that really owns those houses look like us. So that means those are families that are not able to transfer wealth. Those are families that are not able to leave something to their kid, to give their children a chance to go to school, do something else, take a chance, and know they have the safety of their homes. So what can we do about foreclosures? We know there are sometimes folks who own their homes, and they might not be practicing responsibly to maintain that mortgage. But sometimes it's by not their fault. We know there's predatory lending, so we need to crack down on predatory lending. We need to crack down on deed theft and scams, and those are things like in the Supreme Court, some judges a few years ago, we all started a foreclosure mitigation clinic. So we need to make sure that banks, at the end of the day, if a homeowner owes you the money, you should work things out with them to get the money, not wanting to get the asset so then you could, make more than whatever they owed you. So we need to crack down on that. Also, in the neighboring district, in District 42, Inez Barron started a program called the Basement Conversion Program. It's a pilot program where they helped homeowners who have multi-units or maybe one or two, and they have a basement. They offered them a grant. Most of them were at 0 interest, or you could get some of it funded. But what that did was allow someone who has a basement, convert it to make it legal, so that way they can safely rent that. And then the idea behind that is if you can have an additional income, you can likely offset the threat of a foreclosure. So that's something I'd like to bring here to the Canarsie community, where it's filled with homes, filled with multifamily homes. So there's a lot of work that we have to do. When I think about, I'm sorry, I didn't know if I'll wait till you get to some other questions if that's it.
No, I think the foreclosure piece is so important, right? And the transfer of wealth. I think the thing we're seeing with Canarsie is that more and more it's becoming more Black and brown every time the census comes out, right? Like 20 years ago, when I was in high school and visited Canarsie, it was majority white, and it might still be majority white now. I think somewhere around 40 something percent, 42%. But more and more, I do see more Black and brown faces, more immigrants. So when you talk about people who don't have our values, I wonder if that's where the disconnect is. I think, Dimple, you had mentioned that in your opening, saying that you're represented by people whose values are not the same as the folks in the district. I'm curious to know what you meant by that and which values specifically.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
You had said that we're represented by people in the district who don't necessarily share the same values that residents of the district share. So I just wonder what you meant by that specifically, which values, and if you have any examples you could share.
If we look around, I will just give you a quick example. When it comes to sports, some of us parents would have to take our children out of the district to go to certain sports. There's so many public spaces that are available, parks, facilities that are available, but our children, may not play that sport or may not have a setup for that. And I always reference, 108 and Seaview Avenue, where there's a park space that is not developed and developed correctly because it's just left there. And, there's a football team that go out there and they practice on that space. And, it's been years they've been trying to get that space developed by the city council. So, when you don't care about a space or you don't care about something in specific, you don't have that interest in putting any kind of resources into it. I personally believe, because I have to take my children out of the district and I kind of take them locally here to play the sports they play, like track or certain basketball programs. My son, I have to take him out of the district just to play these sports. So I personally believe from my experience that, as a person who cares about, care about the youth, care about my children, I want to know that there are programs here that are funded, but they're not funded. And I have to come to the conclusion that if you really don't care about something, then you're not going to fund it or support it. So that's why I'm saying that. Additionally, if you look throughout the district, when it comes to some of the parks, for example, by Utica and Avenue N, Avenue J, and what is that cross street? I think it's East 59th. Some of the facilities have now been upgraded to some degree, but really and truly, people have to support, the residents have to go out there and advocate so heavy and hard just to have something basic as a slide put up, for the children to play on. It shouldn't be that way. It should be, the resources equitably shared, but it's not that case in our neighborhood. And that's why some of the kids are just at home, locked in an apartment instead of coming out and playing sports. And one of the things I'll add, having something like sports integrated into a curriculum would really offset some of the things that we see in terms of statistics. Like even, I'll add that Flatlands and Canarsies has a 32% rate of obesity, ranked 13 in the city, and 15% diabetes rate, which is 9% in the city. I listened to Shirley just mention some of the things I was going to add, in terms of initiatives that needs to be taken here to educate our children when it comes to health, when it comes to, nutrition. These are things that they should really learn from an early age, but they're not being taught or incorporated into, like, let's say, the curriculum, how to take care of your teeth, something basic, brushing your teeth, taking care of your diet, taking care of what you put in your stomach. And, one of the things we did during the pandemic, distributing the food, is, distributed to certain communities. People were not even aware of some of the vegetables that we were giving out. They were just thrown into the side. But education from a young age and being able to understand fresh vegetables and fruits, being able to ingest this versus, some of the fast food spots that are around, it's something that we really need to really put more focus on, being able to respect, certain communities and providing the resources necessary for them to not only live, but thrive and do so healthily, to combat the sicknesses that we're seeing in the district.
Yeah, I think the health question just keeps coming up over and over again from everything that you all have said. But I think, Dimple, just to summarize kind of what you said at the beginning, and, correct me if my understanding is correct, but it seems like in the aggregate, the feeling is maybe the institutions haven't caught up to where the district has moved in terms of the residents, the makeup, the racial and ethnic makeup of the district. They just haven't caught up yet to where that is. Like, institutionally, it's still very much like 20, 30 years ago, right? What the district looked like, what people enjoyed playing and doing and all of that. And so now in 2021, you have all these folks from the Caribbean, from Russia, all over the place, right? Who just may have different interests and aren't being addressed. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said again earlier, that the pandemic has really exposed a lot of the disparities that we've seen, which was really there, but it's just kind of, blow it out to show you really what's been happening. It's just now being exposed. And, like, our elected officials really need to be able to address some of these issues and address it now and not wait until then. It has to be now. And, with the death toll and the COVID rate, everything that's happening here, what is it? It is like 97,000 residents living in Canarsie, and there were 7,608 cases. 1 out of every 12 person in the district was actually diagnosed with COVID, and there were 386 cases of COVID deaths in the Canarsie community. So these are very alarming numbers. So these are things that we have to pay attention to, but our elected officials paying attention to this. Well, we're not able to see them to actually, converse with them on these issues. So, it's very important.
You mentioned that several times, that you're not able to find these representatives, that you're not able to see them, right? Like, what has been your experience? And Mercedes, I'm curious to know, to bring you into the conversation a little bit, what has been your experience when you have reached out to, like, Council Member Mizell and others who may represent you at the state level?
Are you asking me or Mercedes?
Mercedes, to bring her in, but you can feel free to, Dimple, after Mercedes has a chance, because I want to understand this idea of, this absentee representative that no one is able to find. So tell us, Mercedes, what has been your experience with the current representatives that
my experience with the district started from 2007.
The elected officials in the district.
That's right, 2007, when I could not get results from starting with Avenue L Merchant Association. That was my biggest hit. So when I had my business there, we could not get services, we could not get support. That's when I became president, partner with Brooklyn Chambers of Commerce. But that's one of the things. But this district, I have to say, we've been through a lot. And one of the things, when the district was cracked, so they packed the district, and I fought for the redistricting. I was able to organize around the district. That's why we have the district as whole. And now we can have not selection. We're more likely going to have an election, which I'm very pleased for what took place, because it was a lot of hard work, because the district was cutting in half. That's one of the things. The district is very packed right now. It's overcrowded. That's really one of the problem that we had with COVID. Overcrowdedness is a problem. Yes, I think to my town hall and the issues that I've been sending out, we talk about the basement, but the basement, we have to look at the cellars and the actual basement. Is one house, is one family houses. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at all the houses because we're already overcrowded, but the one that can actually become a legal apartment, those are the ones that I'm more focused. I see Shirley trying to mention it as well, but that's not something that I've been having town hall around it, because people have been talking about since 2013. That was a big thing when I was running. And I'm looking forward to see how we can have the space, but make it safe, because I'm looking for safe and secure home. Right now, we need to build, and we cannot build high rise in the area. I don't know if you're aware that we build on water. So it has to be survey have to be done around it before we can jump and say we're gonna build more. And the houses that we have now, even though I will jump to put basement, but it still have to be secure. We cannot convert cellars into apartment because it's not gonna be safe for people to live in. So we have to be mindful of what's going on. This district have a lot of different dynamic, a lot of issues. Like I said, I'm so happy that more of us can run for office, and eventually we can have the issues that we've been dealing with for decades, that we can address them. And elected official, they have not been present. And that's the reason in 2007, I decided they need somebody that can represent the district and represent everyone in the district, not a little clique.
I
So
see.
that's what I have to put, because I haven't get services.
Yeah.
If I was getting
No.
services, I would not be running.
Yep, that makes sense. So Dimple, go ahead. One more time. You mentioned, you single-handedly just packing your truck and going around the district during COVID to try to feed people, right? Like, what was the response that you got when you reached out to your elected officials at the height of the pandemic?
So what I'll say is that when we did the food distribution, it was through my daughter's organization that is 5 years old. She's 14, but we have a youth empowerment organization, the Stalwarts Youth. And due to the pandemic, we listened to the cries and the concerns of the people. And I was able to, redirect some resources from Baltimore from a partnership that I was able to quickly put together. And we were able to distribute food. This was a 53 tractor trailer truck that came down. I had maybe like 2-3 trucks per week coming down to different communities. Sometimes we actually had 2 trucks offloading at like Sheepshead Bay, Bayview houses, in Canarsie, different neighborhoods. But to answer your question, our elected officials still have never done what I've done. Nobody has ever done that and mirror what I've done in this community. When we talk about service to the community, we actually do service. Our campaign has been powered by grassroots work. And when I say the elected official is missing, I mean that simple things as putting up a no entry sign, I'm not able to get done within the past year. I personally have had my own experience as a constituent just asking for a no entry sign in a specific area as a one-way street. And up to now, something like that from a city council office has not been taken care of. And, moreover, serving the constituents in the community, the most vulnerable, our seniors, our homebound seniors, more importantly, people who are disabled have not been serviced, putting up some flyers saying that you're going to be here, there, and everywhere with 20 boxes and posing, 15 people posing in it. That's not considered service. You actually have to do the work, be on the ground doing the work and answering the needs of the community. And also I'll add lastly that when you call the local elected official, the city council office, it goes to voicemail. You have to wait for them to respond to you. And when they respond, sometimes it's not, anything resulting in something substantial. So overall, it's a matter of being able to service the community in the right way.
Thanks for clarifying that and just really adding a lot of color. I think it's very clear from what you said why this would motivate anyone to run. So Shirley, over to you, because you have had some legislative experience, having worked at the governor's office and with the lieutenant governor, right? You mentioned being part of the group that actually pushed through the $15 an hour minimum wage. So thinking of your legislative experience, how would you make engagement and service part of a legislative plan if you were to be elected?
Okay. Can I just address a comment or two that just to be clear with respect to the pilot program that I am interested in bringing to this district, the basement conversion program that currently Councilwoman Inez Barron does. It is not
Mhm.
a program that builds new basements or builds new homes. It is a program where a qualifying homeowner who already has an existing basement, and sometimes we know there's a lot of people that live in spaces that are not legal, don't have adequate windows or right doors to get out, and also
Mhm.
to prevent, just for safety purposes.
Right.
Those, they have to meet a particular criteria to qualify for this program. So it's not one that is necessarily going to bring such an increase of people. Our district is about 180,000 to 200,000 people. So
Mhm.
I'm not saying we have tons of room, but we can do that in those spaces. People are already renting basements unsafely where there's fires. There was a fire in Mill Basin at the beginning of 2020. And
Mhm.
had they had proper windows and doors and things like that, they could have prevented that. And additionally, with respect to the electeds, I'll say this, just all of us as candidates, most of us are out here working. Like I said, we're now 15 months in, and on a weekly basis, I'm distributing food and PPE supplies. And a lot of my other opponents are doing the same. I can't say that I don't see the elected officials doing it, because I do see the senator do it. I do see the assemblywoman doing it. Now, we might say we want more of a presence from our council member, because our council member is the oldest member in the city council. So
Mhm.
he's part of that protected population that really couldn't come outside. Now, I'm not saying that means that there's a pass, but there has been work that was done with their office. I personally have not reached out to any of those folks, because I took the experiences that I've had working with some of them in the past, working in the governor's office, partnering with them and getting to people. Because even if all of us were providing hundreds of boxes of food, we still couldn't meet the need that this city needed. The reality is, this is a pandemic, this is a crisis like no other. So while there are some things that we should do and be better prepared at, for example, we should have better ways of communicating with our seniors, better access. When they started giving the vaccines, I would go to seniors' homes to set them up, because they didn't have internet access, or they don't use it. We had to fight and push the governor's office for them to create a 1-800 number, because that's what most older folks are doing. They use a landline. So there is a balance. There are things that we can do. That's why I think at this particular moment, while I'm not an ageist, and I appreciate and value the experiences of older people and what they bring and what they can show me. But right now, a lot of our older folks have put in that work. I'm proud of them, but this is time for them to give the baton to us, that has the new energy, that has the creative ideas, the new solutions, and the experience to go with it, for us to do this job. So I just wanted to touch those. But with respect to your question about using legislation, someone mentioned, I think Dimple was talking earlier about the language barrier access. We need to really codify and make sure that every resource center, every city service agency has languages that meet the needs of the community. That's why it's so important getting counted in the census. So God willing, if I become the member, I know this district has a heavy Haitian population. It has a heavy Russian population. And I plan to have community liaisons in my office that speak those languages, so they can directly work with them. I'm a Haitian kid. I've been translating letters and doing things for my parents and their friends since I was like 7 years old. While I want to do that, I know my time will be best spent drafting legislation that can solve some of these problems, finding the right organizations to fund so we can solve some of these problems, so we can use our legislative authority and our oversight. Because too often we sign a bill and that's it. And we know to really get things done, everything comes with a cost. So for me, directly in my office, with the budget that I would get for my staff, I would have a diverse staff that reflects my community, even having a part-time senior that can speak to senior issues. So I think we just have to be really creative and how we use the law and how we use our authority and our oversight in the city council to do something. Eliminating spending, that's one of the big things. Our contracting process in the city takes too much away. It takes too much time and too much money. So those are one of the things that I want to do for sure. Go through the budget, eliminate waste. We have a $93 billion budget in the city, and that's a lot of money. So we should be able to really address a lot of these issues, but it's going to take some work. We know the reason things are the way they are, because that's the way they've been. And that's why it's important that we have new leadership. We're going to get a new mayor. There's going to be about maybe 35 new council members in the city. So we got to be ready to work with those groups of folks to really make sure our community is not left. Legislatively, you mentioned Superstorm Sandy earlier. That's actually one of my platform issues that's on my palm card. We need to beef up our infrastructure, shore up our coastlines. The mayor did a $1 billion resiliency program immediately following Superstorm Sandy, and we were left out. So we need to make sure that we are in, and we can do that and make sure that all communities that are vulnerable to water and things like that are included. And it's not just if you live in Chelsea or if you live in Brooklyn Heights. Thank you.
No, this is great to hear. So just to summarize, it sounds like if you were to be elected, you'd make sure your staff is diverse and that you have a point person who could translate or represent older folks, just whatever the cultural fluency is that's needed to represent the district. So yeah, before we move into questions, you did mention the budget. There's a question that came through over email I want to ask about, and then we can see what other questions come through. One of them, the budget question relates to how you would actually help fund different nonprofits who are helping to close the gap, right? Between services that people just aren't able to find easily. So how would you go about making sure that different nonprofits are well funded is the question. And I guess we can start with Dimple or Mercedes. We haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Okay, so, well, first of all, there are a lot of RFPs from the city that are available. And as a nonprofit, it's a matter of being able to understand the process and, getting those bids and securing those bids. Like Campbell, for example, that are in, many of the schools provide certain programs. Those are nonprofits that are in the school receiving funding. And private, separate nonprofits like mine, my little nonprofit that I have, those programs can receive funding from, private corporations or like the banks, for example, or through the city, or even discretionary fund from, a member, city council member, so on and so forth. So being able to provide, resources for those nonprofits are critical, because as we've seen, we go back to talking about the pandemic. During the pandemic, it's these little nonprofits that have actually stepped up and actually done the work in the community. Again, I'll say that nobody's not debating the fact that our member or council member is of a certain age that's supposed to be vulnerable and stay at home. But what's the excuse for the staff being able to be there to answer a phone call and provide the services that they're being paid to provide? And they have a responsibility to the community. So there's no excuse for any member to tell me that, they're of a certain age and their staff, is not able to be in that position. And if it's God's will for me to get that seat, one of the things I'll say is that we've said, this is on my page, on my website, that we will designate a specific liaison to combat some of these issues that the community has, like a 311 style. So if somebody calls the office, they'll have, service being provided to them in whatever regard that they need. So answering the question of the nonprofit, there are many resources out there, but people do not know how to tap into it. So if they were to go to the local, like if I were to be the council person and they were to come to the office, then they would be able to get guidance on how they can be able to access those funds from either through the city through RFP or through the council person with the discretionary fund, because there's a host of nonprofits that do receive funding from city council members.
Mercedes, how would you use your funding to support nonprofits, or use other means to make sure that nonprofits are supported consistently?
First, we have to look at the nonprofit, what kind of the services they're providing, and having check and balance, because not all nonprofit doing excellent work. We have some great one, and we have those that not productive for our community. When we're talking about nonprofit right now for the works that we need in our community, when you're looking at, we have center right in our community and the kids don't have access to it. That's a crime to me. Right now, as we speak, when I get to Nisha houses, the kids are playing in the staircase because they don't have no places to go. The parents talking to you. We have $1 million center, beautiful, but yet the kids cannot get access to it. Those are the things that bothers me. When you're looking at the school building, we have so many kids that have mental health issues. They're not being addressed until they get later on in life and they cannot produce. Those are the things that we need to, especially now more than ever, we need to address mental health issues that we're dealing with in our community. For me, it needs to start from the school age.
Mhm.
We need to have people that present. We cannot have excuses for elected official. When you take the responsibility to work, you have to work.
Mhm.
You have to work. You cannot go MIA. It's the minute that you feel like you cannot do the job, that's the time you said, no, I resign or I need to be replaced.
Mhm.
When
Okay.
it comes to, I heard before about Sandy. Sandy hit us so hard. I could never forget. And I think it's out there in YouTube about interview that I had done. And I had to help others when my house were underwater. I have to get people out. The police officer have to stand on top of the van. They don't know, nobody know what to do. And I was able to guide people out, getting everyone out and getting my voice out, trying to get people out. I would never forget that day. There's a YouTube for you to, even if you want to
Yeah,
do
no,
that and see.
check it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
it was
for
hard for us. And one of the things that I have learned in my life or all my experience, there's theory, there's practice. And as a nurse, that's what we have to do both. And we have to specialize in both. But in this community, we need work. There is a lot going on. There's a lot going on. We cannot afford to just have talk, but it's real action. I recall for Sandy, I was working for the state, but now it's not a state. You can talk around statewide. We have done around state, but let's focus on the city since we're running for city council. But in the state level, I was able to use the state to call on the city to do the right thing. And for Sandy, it was
how
FEMA, which
did
is
you do
federal
that?
level. We were
How did
able
you
to.
get the state to call on the city to do the right thing?
Yeah,
What?
when you work in the office and you
Mhm.
realize so much going on around you, so even though you work for the state, but you're able to call your city council member to say
Mhm.
this is what needs to be done. And when they're not doing it, you're able to call directly because there's a lot of organization that came to support us during Sandy. I had a company all the way from Jersey that had to bring our water right away because we didn't have no water. We didn't have any electricity. So we had to find hub for people. And right away we had to open the office and we have to collect clothes and trying to get people because a lot of us did not have no, including myself, I had to go over a friend's house. So
Yeah.
all those things we had to address it immediately. But thank God FEMA, and I was doing application for SBA and FEMA. And you one of
Yeah.
the things that I have learned over the years as a business person and but balancing budget for $1 million
Okay.
and I have to
Thanks,
have employees
thanks,
and
Mercedes. We
it's
have
the
to
experience. Is the
yeah,
experience. Is the experience. And the experience is always take out the waste. And I know that
right.
you have to be the everything and yet balance the budget and give the service. And that's the reason I'm
Okay.
so passionate about the district because people came from all over. Whenever
Mhm.
they have that's why I'm not scared to go to any housing anytime because I have to get to the housing. And when the staff tell me they cannot deliver a nebulizer for a child in the houses, I'll go myself. That's
Yeah.
what I do, work for the community. And
Okay.
Sandy and Irene, it's bad memory, but we came out. We came out tougher and stronger. So that's what I believe. This pandemic has highlighted the problems that have burdened our community. But this time around, I promise you, we're going to work together to make this place a better place. For
Okay.
those that have
Thanks,
knowledge for
Mercedes.
different area, we welcome you. And then we're going to organize together and make this
All
district.
right. So
I
for
just
you,
want to add really quickly that outreach and education, I want to leave with people, outreach and education is critical to anything that we do. You can continue.
okay. No, that's a good point, and that's a theme that we're hearing, that people, the resources are there, but no one knows how to get to them, right? It's something we've heard from other districts as well. So it's obviously a systemic problem. And so we're looking for not only the grassroots answers and solutions, which you all are involved in, but a systemic change to engage people, right? So let me
Again,
bring that to you, Shirley. Again, going back to your exposure and work with government in the past, how would you make engagement, a more systemic part of your office should you be elected? You already mentioned that you would have a diverse staff, but what are some of the other ideas and plans that you think would be valuable?
Thank you. I think primarily is to create an email database in which we know technology online is one of the number one ways in which we communicate. So
Mhm.
we need to engage the community more, let them know about resources, let them know about events. So definitely create an ongoing, regular, weekly update from the council member, letting them know what I'm doing in City Hall, letting them know what's happening in the district, and also providing a space where they can bring issues to light for us. Because the reality is, as much as a member will want to do a good job, you can't know everything that's happening in the district. So the community themselves are your eyes and ears too. And just to back up a little bit, when you talked about the funding the nonprofits, the
Mhm.
primary way we can do that is through the discretionary funds and through the application process. What I would do differently here is definitely expand that pool of recipients. There are lots of nonprofits that help us here in the district, lots of nonprofits from other places that provide services to our residents in the district. So we need to definitely be a little more give those grants more evenly, more fairly.
Mhm.
Also, to me, one of the biggest things that we can do is help our young people. And that's why in the budget itself, I would allocate money for separate from the discretionary funds, because we need that for stuff right in the district, but for citywide to have youth employment all year long. We can't afford to do it. So those are some of the things that we can do. We recently finally got our fair and equal funding from the state after like 30 years. So now that will alleviate some offset. So hopefully we can find little pockets of waste and add and reallocate those funding to address some of those other issues in our community that aren't necessarily handled just by nonprofits.
and one of the things, if I may add, we never have participatory budget in budgeting in our community. That's one of the things I've been fighting for, and I've been talking about it in community board. That $1 million, we should engage people, the stakeholder in the community, know exactly how to allocate the funding and get rid of those folks that not doing their job, all the CBOs that not doing their job. And if we have to bring new one, that's what we have to do. We cannot continue the same pattern because it's not working for the district.
Mhm.
I do
I
agree with
take that point.
I do agree with Mercedes there. Participatory budgeting is very
Mhm.
important. So I would definitely support that. And again, we just have to make sure that people do the proper application process to get this funding. The thing is, it's not like folks are just, if they are getting monies through other ways, unscrupulous ways, we got to stop that by making a consistent um, application process that everyone will go through. But participatory budgeting will also engage the community. We need folks to get more civically engaged. There's people that don't even know much about this election that's happening and how pertinent it is at this pivotal time. So we definitely need to bring back civic engagement. And I think that's one of the ways that we could definitely beef that up.
Mhm.
If I may add really quickly that
Sure.
when it comes to the budget, the discretionary fund budget, it's also about accountability, because year after year applying for the discretionary funds, the same nonprofits usually receive the money, and
Mhm.
if there's not any kind of tangible results, or we can't see what is being happen what is happening with the funding, then it should really be evaluated, and like Mercedes also said earlier, shift to different other nonprofits, because every year they're growing nonprofits in this very community that provide many different services, but they're not being supported. And one of the things I wanted to really hammer in on is that they're just a small group of people who've been controlling politics in this community and have been controlling, our tax dollars and our money and our resources. And that needs to change. Those small pockets of people who've been controlling us needs to change. We really need to be that voice, and we really need to come together, and we really need to say that this is not going to happen anymore. We need to have that new leadership, new vision, new opportunities kind of concept. So that's something I want to mention also.
Okay. No, let's dig into that a little bit, right? Because some of our elected officials would argue that the more you have some longevity, right, and seniority in the council, the better it is to attract and get services, for your community, right? Because you can sit on different committees and do different things. So what would be your response to that, Dimple, since you brought it up? Because
Yeah, I
we have
mean,
heard that seniority is good for the community. So please respond.
oh, absolutely. Experience matters, but depends on where your money is going, where the resources are going. If the playing field is not level enough, where certain communities are getting and the other segments of the district is not getting, then how is that fair? It doesn't matter anymore with seniority or not. It matters who's actually getting that resources. And if we have certain parts of the community where children don't have access to the internet, where there's a major digital divide, and there is another aspect of the community where children are flourishing, then we do have an issue here. There's certain parts of the community where there's certain stores set up just catering for a certain demographic. There's just a lot of shifts in how things are set up in this community. So it has nothing to do with experience in that aspect of the way. It's how the money is being shared and distributed. But if we don't speak up and say anything about it and have an issue with it or a problem with it, a lot of people are afraid to ruffle the feathers of certain people. The people who've been controlling us for the past 50 years are the same faces, the same people. Sometimes they put people like me and you in those positions as puppets, and they're the ones who are, we're saying, okay, well, this person looks like me, they'll have my best interest at heart. But no, they're under the same establishment umbrella. So we've been controlled by the same people, the same puppet masters. It's time for change. Experience doesn't matter in that case. It matters what you're doing with your money, how we getting it.
Okay, yeah. This actually brings to mind, and then we have one question that came in and we'll get to it. So actually, let me get to the question first, and then we'll go back to the incident with you guys having to fight to stay on the ballot. I think it was about a month ago, right? Because it seemed to be a fight between like old and new guard, and I'd like to hear your thoughts directly on that. But to stick to the budget, and then we'll move on, to stop talking about financials. Someone asked, how will you ensure that CUNY, the City University of New York school system, is fully funded, right, through the city council as a council member, and ensure that programs such as SEEK and other opportunity programs are still available to students who need that financial support? So, higher education question, what can you do to help make sure that CUNY schools are fully funded and are able to help people in our communities get to school and graduate with their degrees? Shirley, we haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Sure. So I am a proud CUNY grad for grad school, went to Brooklyn College in 2009. And funding a CUNY is important because that's our city school. That's where parents, older adults are able to return to get a certificate, get another degree so they could earn more. But they shouldn't have to decide between like working and being able to afford school, debt and being able to afford school. In the city council, the higher education committee actually controls half of the budget for CUNY. So we need to make sure that this new mayor does not, and anything else does not come in the way from taking monies away from that budget. Because too often when money needs to be filled in for something else, education is the first to get cut. Things in education are the first to get cut. So we need to make sure the higher education committee is strong and stands up for it. For programs like SEEK, and the state has their own version, EOP, and they have a similar version, we need to support those programs. That's why I fought so hard in SUNY as a lobbyist to close the tap gap. And this year we actually closed the tap gap. And what that means is most of the time when students apply for FAFSA and aid like that, they'll get that portion, but then in the school will provide something, but there's a gap of money. And sometimes that gap of money makes them unable to complete their semester, makes them have to drop out. So we are proud to say that we closed that tap gap. So we know with that, that is already putting them in on a higher level, but we need to go further than that. CUNY used to be free. It used to be free up until the mid 70s when, and you know, we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room when people that look like us started going there. So then that changed. So we need to bring that back. Look, the reality is we want to build a strong future with a strong workforce. So we got to be able to help them. I have a lot of student loans. So I know the struggle that people go through with that, along with 40 other millions of Americans, but millions of people right here in our city. So we need to make CUNY free. And once we can do that, we can have, it helps us all around, because then we'll produce better students who can do better jobs, who can be more efficient, who will pay taxes, who will buy homes, and who will ultimately stay here. So we need to make CUNY free for all New York City residents. I think that will be my priority, because I don't want people coming from neighboring states without just to get in our schools. So I think our people are more important for are our priority rather. And as time goes on, hopefully other states and other cities can mimic us and just ultimately make education free, because it helps the country as a whole.
Well, I'll be the first one to sign, to co-sign on Make CUNY Free. I'm a proud Baruch grad myself, so I love CUNY schools. I think everybody should get to go. But Shirley, you actually went into the priorities piece, and that'll be my last question for each of you before we end. But before we get to that last question, think about what your main priorities are that you'd like to share with folks to wrap up the night. But before we get into that, I did want to hear from you directly about what occurred with the ballot, like last minute motion that was made to try to get you all, some of you at least, taken off the ballot for June 22nd.
Sure. So in March, we all submitted at different times our petitions, and you have five. They had at their last day, at the last hour, the former county boss filed general objections to my petitions, Dimple, Mercedes, and Donald Craston. So on the following morning, I actually reached out to all of my opponents and said, hey, look, general objections have been filed against all of us. And there's no issue with respect to the integrity of my signatures, but rather, you know, in this pandemic, we already sacrificed so much to get these signatures all around the city. Even mayoral candidates had taken pledges not to oppose one another. So I said, let's stand together. Let's do a press conference and let's call out the folks that filed the objections in an effort to move them not to file specific objections, because ultimately that would take us away from voter engagement and make us spend unnecessary money. While we're all running for the same seat, I found this issue to be so important. So we did, in fact, come together on 3 days later on the Monday morning. We held a press conference, and later on, none of us, we all made the ballot. But just to, you know, I was really saddened yesterday to learn that in Queens, in the 20th Council District, they have a similar issue. And the county filed objections against them, and those candidates came together. And it's reported in City and State. The article is called Rage Over the Queens Machine. But my opponent, Mercedes Narcisse, actually commented on that article, and she told them that we never got together. And we actually did get together. The pictures are all over our websites. And, you know, we came together because we know, yes, we're fighting for this seat, But on this issue, because it affects health, it affects our voters, it affects our staff, we came together. So I was disheartened yesterday to read that article and see her quote in which she said she called all of us and none of us stood with her and no coalition was done. And it in fact was done. There's articles about it in the local.
Yeah, we wrote about it as well. Mercedes, what would you like to say in response to that?
She said it
I
didn't.
like to listen because that's not what it is at all. They asked me for the ranked choice voting. That's what they asked me if I had called for collaboration for us to work together. That's the one that I call everyone that I wanted to work together, but I did not get any partner to work as a ranked choice voting. That's that part. For that, move on a little further. Furthermore, you just said what you said, which is a total lie.
I stand by what I said because
it was coalition for the ranked choice voting.
Okay,
I could not say that we're not together while we have a picture. It was an inter. As a matter of fact, when you asked for Zoom, I asked for in person in front of, and I said we're going in front of Thomas Jefferson, which I call Temple. Let's do it in front. So I could not say I did not come together. Well, there is a well press conference that's televised that everybody was there. So
and that's why I understand. And if you're
beside the point.
If you're saying
I would never say something like that.
Hold on, I'll let you finish. If you're saying it's for ranked choice voting, then perhaps you misunderstood what that article was about because it's in City and State.
The question was specific.
Let me just finish.
In terms of ranked choice voting.
So, okay, but I'm just telling you, that's what you said. You said you
ranked choice voting.
Us to have a coalition. Mercedes, I'm here right now. Let's talk about ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting, that's the coalition we're talking about. So let's move forward because I'm not arguing back and forth with you because I see you.
Thank you.
Let's leave it that alone because I could not say something that was
simple. Unfortunately,
for the Cuny,
let me apologize for getting kicked off. My computer just closed out. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Sorry, Mercedes, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, for the Cuny.
I was just getting thoughts around how you guys felt about coming together to deal with the whole motion, general objections, I believe it's called, to get you all to go back and have to redo your petitions to stay on the ballot. So Shirley was explaining that she had reached out to everyone and gotten you all to come together and have a presser and everything. And ultimately you all prevailed and stayed on the ballot. But she said she was saddened to see that a City and State article published yesterday or today quoted Mercedes as saying that no one had come together. So Mercedes was clarifying that she was talking about, in that quote, about ranked choice voting and not about coming together to stay on the ballot and fight that motion. So that's what you missed.
Okay. So I just want to, oh, sorry, Mercedes, can I really answer the question real quick about Excelsior? So we talked about Cuny. First of all, I'm a graduate of Kingsborough College proudly and a graduate of Brooklyn College with my master's. And my older daughter is about to graduate with her master's from Brooklyn College as well. So I'm a Cuny student and a Cuny graduate. And one of the things that I've said and is on my website as well is how I would handle free school for students. It's very simple. Doing the same thing, mirroring what the state has done with the Excelsior program, but do it in the on the city level, whereby students attend four years of college or their master's program with an extension of 2 years and then serve back within the city. So that's the way of repaying. So that's my response to those students who are watching and who asked that question. This is to me a fair way of serving your community and serving your city while you go to college to pay for Cuny free. So that's my answer. So continue because I'm listening to what the other.
Go ahead, Mercedes.
As a matter of fact, I was gonna say free Cuny totally, and I benefit from SIG program, and we have to collaboratively work with the state to making sure that we have all free Cuny because we need it, especially more than ever with what we're going on. And as Shirley mentioned earlier, that whenever we get on something, the things change, the game change. So now this is an opportunity that we have so many of minorities in the process, understand the struggle. Now, beside the Cuny, we have to think about the affordable housing, provided support there, because you can be going to school. If you don't have a place to stay, you're not gonna be able to focus and study. We have some of us have mothers, we have the children, we have to support childcare. And that's my take on that. And as far as I mean, the things that Shirley said, I'm open to work with everyone. And I understand Shirley, coming after the supporter of mine to get this. That's all right. You come after the supporters, that's all great. But I would not say something that I know there is a record, because I am a person of my word. And when you call me, if I was going to hide behind it, I would not tell you, let's do it in person. That's where I'm at. So now, as far as me being in the community, I've been here for too long, and I'm always welcoming everyone that coming. And for many times, I'm hearing that you've been here for 20 years working. Cindy, where have you been? Irene, where have you been? Really? So how many years actually that you've been in the district, Shirley?
Thank you for the question, Mercedes. This is the 20th year that I've been living here. And it's actually something I'm happy you asked about, because you have said that I live in Long Island and that you've never seen me in the district. And to be quite honest with you, I remember packing bags for a back to school event at your office on Avenue L in the early 2000s. My family moved in 2000. I was away at college up until I went to college from 2002 to 2005 in Delaware. I voted in Brooklyn every single election in this district. So once and for all, I'm glad you're asking that. You know exactly where I live. You have friends that live across the street from me. It's something that you say, and I don't think it's fair. Just let's stay on substance. I've worked with you. I've been side by side feeding with you at churches for Thanksgivings all throughout the early 2000s. I served on the 69th Precinct Council. And then when I became a lawyer, I became their legal advisor. You know me very well. I see you every Sunday after your show when you see me go to my show. I would appreciate if you just—
20 years?
No, you haven't seen me for 20 years, Mercedes. I'm not as old as you. I'm much younger.
But you said you've been in the district for 20 years.
I've been living here for 20 years. And you know that, the same place. You can check my record. I've voted here all the time. I lived in one other place before this, and that's in Crown Heights. So this Long Island place that you keep telling people that I live in, that's not true.
You are officer of the court, right?
Yes, I am.
Officer of the court. 20 years you've been here.
Yes, I am.
You live in Madison, Montgomery. You live in Nostrand, Long Island.
Street, honey.
That's Board of Election, that record.
I grew up on Montgomery.
That's an election. That's a Board of Election. You're officer of the court, and there is a record, Board of Election. You're sitting here saying all the good stories. You're officer of the court. I asked you how many years. You said 20 years.
I appreciate you. I grew up on Montgomery and Rogers. When I first voted.
You were on Nostrand, Madison.
Okay.
You were on Long Island. It's a Board of Election.
I lived in Long Island. Well, thank you for that. But
Board of Election.
Mercedes,
20 years.
I appreciate it, and thank you.
I'm just asking you.
The voters see me, you see me. I met you in this community.
For the past year.
I've been part of this club for 16 years, and that's where I met you.
Board of Election have a record. You're officer of the court.
I used to see you as a mentor, but
you're officer of the court, Shirley.
Okay, I think we need to close this out, ladies.
You're officer of the court. You said you've been in this for 20 years.
A businesswoman that sells medical supplies.
Where you know that?
Where have
you been in the district for 20 years?
You say you're a frontline nurse. What hospitals have you worked at?
Elmhurst Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Elmhurst Hospital, Brookdale Hospital.
Oh.
Visiting nurse services. Look, and I'm still active. I'm still active. We have 2 clinics, and I'm still practicing every day.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. All right. During the height of the pandemic, I was delivering medication at home for everyone.
Thank you, Shirley.
Shirley, you're officer of the court. You say you've been in this
nurses
years.
Okay. We're gonna close it out. Thank you.
You met me in this community. You used to be a mentor to me, Mercedes.
Because you're coming back and forth, registering the same place about 4 times in the same place.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're officer of the court, 20 years.
Just to be clear, Mercedes, you were removed off of a ballot by the court, the same court that I am officer to, for lying on your address.
Look, I have two homes on the same district. When Sandy happened, I moved to the next home.
I care about the voters.
In the same district. And it's the same district, by the way. Do you know it's the same district?
So I don't think any of it matters, because if you vote on the ballot, then you're on the ballot, right?
Really, it's the same district. I have 2 homes on the same avenue, Avenue L, 96 and 105.
All right, we have to leave it there. We're at time, and I don't think viewers are getting much, from the
They're
past two
not, and this
minutes.
is
I
a shame.
understand you all are very passionate about the district and the voters and where you live, and you all want to represent District 46. So I get it, but if you're on the ballot, you're on the ballot. All this tit for tat and back and forth, I think we can leave that at the door. Dimple, I saw your hand up, but we are running out of time. If you could start with just say what you'd like to say and then wrap up with why people should choose you on June 22nd, put you at the top of their ranked ballot. We can end it there for tonight and I'll wrap up. So go ahead, Dimple.
All right, thank you. First of all, again, let me reinforce and thank the Haitian Times for the opportunity for hosting us. It was a great opportunity for us to express our concerns, voice our initiatives and what we can do and bring forward for the community. Why should I be your choice? Well, because I'm the only candidate who has a grassroots campaign, who is not tied into any political machine, any kind of political elitist. Our campaign is powered by organic, hardworking, residents in the community who share a concern that I have, many concerns that I've had throughout the district, and the issues that we've been facing are similar to, I've been facing those issues just like my neighbors. So instead of sitting in a corner and talking about it, might as well, step up and actually running. So for those people who are asking the question, is like, I'm just like you. I share your sentiments that you want to see change. You want to see people who look like you. You want to see people who represent you and like-minded, somebody who is detached from any kind of a polls or political connection. And, when you vote, early voting is June 12th to the 20th. If you vote early, I hope that I secure your vote and get your vote. And when you vote for me, I'll definitely be a person who is a strong advocate for you and your family. I tell people all the time, take a look at my family, because I believe in that we invest from inside and out. When you build a strong family and you start as an individual who's a strong person and you build a strong family, then it spills over into a stronger community. When the community is a strong community, you have a strong borough, strong city, so on and so forth. So people, I tell them, don't look at me from 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Look at me for my background and my family. We're all very successful for a reason, because, I've invested in my home. And, I bring those things and I'd like to share those things with my community and the constituents. I want to thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dimple. Mercedes, let's go over to you next. Why should people choose you as their top choice on June 22nd? Or if they vote early, as Dimple
The
pointed out.
vote earlier from the 12th to the 28th. Once again, thank you for the great opportunity for being here. I enjoy being part of this, and Haitian Time, you're the best. You've been putting it out there. And to see, one of the things that I appreciate the most is coming out there showing where the funding just allocated throughout our district. And if I recall, one of the city council member, Alan Mazel, happened to be the one that represented the district, and all our funding is actually allocated outside of the district, while we having our children running the staircase for sports. It's supposed to be sports for all academic program, because we have a lot of parents, mothers like me, that struggle to work 3 jobs. I work visiting nurse services. I was working girling home care and going to the ER at Elmer's Hospital. And one paycheck was to put aside for the childcare, one for investment for my business, and the last one I had to pay my bills. So I understand the struggles of District 46. District 46 made me who I am today, everything that I am, the opportunity that I got. And my business, everyone in the community that have a prescription, they know they had to come to medical and surgical supply, statewide medical, that owned by me for over 15 years. Right now we have a clinic, the same thing. I always gather support. The community have my heart, and I am District 46, and anything that I will do is to bring the District 46 to a place where we can live, work, and enjoy and work together for the betterment of the community, provide education, top quality education, quality healthcare. I'm talking about quality healthcare, including mental health for all. We see what happened during that pandemic, and we're gonna see much more. If we're not prepared, we're not equipped. This is not only theory. You have to take practice of people that have been there, going through the struggle with the district, whether it's Sandy, Irene, I'm here for the district, and I know the district, I understand the district, and I'm ready to serve the district. In 2013, you give me the love of my life. You said that you can do the job by giving me over almost 6,000 votes when I had no money, no endorsement. And I appreciate that. And that's the reason I come back to say, yes, I'm ready, prepared, and ready to serve the district. So on the 22nd. Like Dempo said, from the 12th to the 20th, I'm waiting for you. Let's make it happen. I'll be your number one. You're always going to be my number one, no matter what. And you realize what happened before. I'm always staying here, focused, and making sure this district is a better place. So thank you for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward for everyone and to work together. Shirley, I'm open to work with you too. Dempo, everyone. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mercedes, for that. But just a quick point of correction, because the council member, Mizell, isn't here, I guess, to respond on his own. Our story had actually said that more than half of his discretionary spending takes place inside his district. And we had broken down like where most of that money goes from the 1.4 million that he has either allocated or that he helps control. 678,000 is inside the district and 772,000 is outside. So just
But
want
where
to
the
make
money
sure
goes,
we were
not
clear.
in our district, not
Well,
really, because it's not serving the kids, the people that need the district, like Deborah was mentioning earlier, because it's
it says
one.
we're sorry, we're out of time, but I just want to make sure you don't mischaracterize
Yes.
our story, right? Because our story said that, he actually
Most of the
funded the
funding.
Bergen Beach Youth Organization to the tune of $110,000, right?
Now you
So
got it.
where the Bergen Beach Youth Organization is versus, I don't know, the Canarsie Basin group is, that's,
I
still
appreciate
within
that.
the
I
district. So I just want
appreciate
to make
that. But
sure that you quoting our story properly so we
the
can stop
recording,
any
the,
mischaracterizations that might
what we
end up
said,
out there.
I understand,
Okay?
I respect that. But for us, we're not feeling it. But when I'm running the staircase and the kids are running the staircase with me for sport, that's a problem. There's a lot of things we're not going to go back and forth. But yes, like you said, most of the funding, but we're not feeling it where we're supposed to feel it in the district. So
Okay.
just like
Yeah.
we have 80%, like foreclosure prevention, things that's supposed to be done in that district to change people's lives, not happening.
Yeah.
That's
No,
just
I
like we're not
understand.
feeling
He's
it.
saying he may be spending the money inside the district, but you would have a different set of priorities with which organizations would receive those funds. So
That's
I
correct.
understand. I just want to make sure that our story
That's
was
correct.
correct for the record.
Mhm.
So Shirley, let's go over to you to just help wrap it up. Like, why should voters choose you in the upcoming primaries on June 22nd? Why should they rank you first?
Yes. Thank you to Haitian Times. Thank you to all the organizers, and thank you to you, our moderator, and the audience for checking us out so we all can make an informed decision. I am asking, Shirley Paul is asking for your support to become the next city council member to represent you. Why is that? I'm the only candidate in this race that's equipped with budget and legislative experience, that has an understanding of government. I know there's a lot of things that we want to do, but we know all those things come with a price tag. So we have to have a strong voice, a strong leader that's going to be able to look ahead and see what things should be priority, what cannot be taken off the table, and how can we stretch the budget that we do have. I'm asking you to stand with me. Vote for me on June 22nd. Early voting starts on June 12th through the 20th, as it was mentioned. Join me and support my candidacy along with unions like UFT 1199, CSA, RWDSU, and Carpenters, who are all supporting me and standing with me. But your support is ultimately most important. It would be a privilege to represent you and to work alongside you and on behalf of you to make this district better, stronger, safer, and with just a new vision, and to make sure we fix education, we fix housing, we fix our infrastructure, and we maintain the quality of life that has brought everyone to District 46. Keep following me. I've dropped my website information in the chat. You can check me out at shirleypaulny.com. Keep up with the campaign. Send us a message if you'd like to volunteer. Keep us in prayer, and together we'll get to victory and continue to work for this district and this great city. Again, I thank you, Shirley Paul. Good night.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us tonight. This was a really spirited debate. Obviously, the candidates are very passionate about why they'd like to represent the district. And just to recap some of what we heard that there's a huge disconnect that's driving them to run, right? There's a disconnect between the current elected officials for a variety of reasons and the needs of the community that currently resides in the district. So that is a major factor, it sounds like. And going into coming out of this pandemic, making sure that people have the resources to be able to work and live here, I heard is a big theme, right? Everyone
Yep,
wants to get folks the resources that they need and just allocate them in the proper ways to make sure our Black and Brown communities are taken care of.
that's
We
right.
heard a lot about the old guard and new guard. Politics is politics. That's always going to happen. So keep those 2 points in mind going into June 22nd, and continue to look at the candidates' websites that they mentioned and that are on in the chat. Be sure to continue following the Haitian Times at haitiantimes.com or on socials. We will be covering the races going into June. And I invite you to join us next week on the 11th for the District 27 Council Members Forum, the Candidates Forum. That's going to be right here again at 7 p.m. on May 11th. Please join us and drop us a line at submissions@haitiantimes.com if you had a question we didn't get to, or if you just like to offer some ideas. With that said, I'll wrap it up. Thank you again, ladies. Best
Thank
of
you.
luck to all of you. Have
I
a great
appreciate
night.
you. I appreciate you. And I'm the #1 choice for 1199 CSA and all the other unions. So thank you so much. I did not mention that. Bye. Mhm.